So today's video is going to be a bit of a serious video because we're going to be talking about representation. And to be real with you, it's going to get weird here and there, but it's about time that we ripped off the band-aid in terms of some of these things. Because truthfully, when it comes to representation in anime, I'm going to begin with a positive and a fair one. It's not fair for the entirety of Japan or the anime genre to try and represent an entire group or bunch of people. The responsibility is ultimately on the world. But in terms of this situation, I'm going to specifically be talking about anime, which is inherently Japanese. And the thing is, for a while watching anime, to be real with you, there wasn't that much representation for people such as myself. And I know that some people might be very confused about what does that matter, if the anime teaches you something good, you shouldn't really look at who the messengers are or what's happening. You should just enjoy the anime. And that's true, because I've taken some of those lessons and applied them to myself, and they've kind of made me who I am. But at the same time, it is important because in actuality, the one thing that I always used to have an issue with, and maybe this is a new term, is imposter syndrome. Because when I would watch certain anime and they would teach you all of these lessons, I always used to ask myself, was the message for me or for someone else? Because inherently, when you watch an anime that doesn't have representation or people who look like you might wonder if that message might even be for you. And that was something that I really struggled with, and unfortunately, you kind of couldn't really do anything about it. You could throw outrage and say they should add more representation, but there was something inherently wrong about that, because at the same time, this is someone else's vision. We shouldn't put our vision on someone else's vision and they have to do what we want. That doesn't feel good in terms of a creative space, but it was hard to deny how ignorant it was because of the world that we live in. And to say that there aren't different races within the world and different places is a lie. But for some reason, when you tuned on to certain anime, they didn't have certain races, to be real with you. It just kind of seemed like they just focused on one thing. And I won't lie to you, I wasn't there during that time, but it does seem like certain things were more accepted. And truthfully, that's what it was. Sometimes they would prefer a certain demographic because it looks better, it sells better. It's more difficult to sell other races. And that was the thing that happened, and it still does happen. But recently, when I was watching Gachakuta, I felt involved because the fact that it has so many different races, but also kind of just normalizing that is a huge deal. Because sometimes I can understand what people complain about, where they're like, people want representation, but like in high figures and low figures, just accept things as they are. And that is fair. But to see an anime just sprinkle humans in the way you're supposed to sprinkle humans in a normal way, whether they're high, low, or whatever ranking, is important. And as such, Gachakuta is one of the best anime that is written or made by a Japanese woman that has a bunch of representation out there. And it's not the only one, because representation doesn't only stop in terms of race, it also goes in terms of sexuality, which leads us to The Summer Hikaru Died, an anime in which I really was excited to watch, and I was waiting to see what people would think about it because I love the anime. But the first thing that I saw when it came to looking up the anime was someone saying that they like the anime, but they don't like the fact that there could be a boy love thing there. And then I scrolled past that and found more comments that seemed to genuinely disregard the entire anime because of their possible sexuality. And that really bothered me, to the point that I literally made a short asking people and just wondering, why are people like this and why does it even matter in this age? We're in 2025 and there are people out there who find two guys possibly liking each other as a place where they draw the line. As if we're not going to act as if the medium that we watch, like anime, has a bunch of things that violate people and do really nasty things. You're cool for that, but just seeing two dudes possibly like each other is where you draw the line. That's just wrong. And that's the problem that's been happening with anime in terms of representation. You have these anime and these creators who possibly want to do something, but it always feels like they're met with a sort of outrage, because some people want to tell that person what they should follow, which has been a thing that Japan has been experiencing for a very long time. You have people who are not even Japanese trying to explain the Japanese culture, even though the person who created it disagrees with that. And that's the point that we're at right now in terms of representation. How are we ever going to move forward in any sense? Because whenever people try to do something that is considered different, but in actuality it's just normal, it's not like different races or sexualities only popped up in the 2010s. for some reason it's a big deal, and it's seen as if they're being fake or pandering towards people's feelings and trying to be popular or different, when really they are doing what they're supposed to do, and that is creating something that is a representation of what they see. They see people who have different sexualities, they see people who are of different races, and that truly is what anime should be, because when we're all watching these sort of things, we all want to identify with something. Some of the characters that we love so much, we identify with them. And a character who taught me that lesson was weirdly from Vinland Saga, because within season 2, one of the most biggest highlights at the beginning was the conversation of slavery. Now when it comes to people of my ethnicity, that is something that is just a common. Every time you watch a historical story, you're gonna see someone of my ethnicity going through slavery. But for some people, seeing a person like Thorfinn go through slavery might have been a culture shock. Because unfortunately, some people don't realize that slavery was something that was applied for everyone, even people of the same country. And the thing is, when I watched the anime, even though I don't look like Thorfinn, I felt his pain, even though he wasn't like me. And that showed me that you can have different representation for different subjects and not solely be locked into one idea that, oh, it's slavery, so we should get a certain group who's experienced slavery, when it's happened everywhere. And this shows you that the creator of Vinland Saga is someone who's educated enough to realize this was a human experience, not solely held for one ethnicity. And ultimately what we got was an experience for everyone. This shows me that when it comes to creating anime, it can be done where you have different representations in different genres and talking about different subjects, and it can still be impactful. Because for some people, they think that including different ethnicities or sexualities can take away from an anime because it feels unnatural. The truth is, a lot of the things that people feel or think that are unnatural are not really. But unfortunately, history has sometimes tried to skew certain things, and I could go down a loophole, but basically, you'll be surprised in terms of what you think might be natural and how actually it might not always be that way. And this is what I'm trying to talk about in terms of what anime is doing. Instead of really heralding these creators for being rebels, for doing different things, we should actually just push it to the point where it's normal. It should be normal to have different representation in shows. It should be normal to not even worry about what people will think in terms of an anime because someone's different. Especially when we live in a world where we're constantly surrounded by different people. Why would you want to isolate your vision? But also in terms of people who want to tell the creators what they should do. Why would you do that? You fighting for them to live and breathe their own vision, but you want it to align with what you want. That doesn't make sense. And ultimately, that just shows me some people need to address themselves instead of trying to address what the anime should do. But ultimately, representation can only do good in terms of anime. And hopefully what I told you is something that shows you that it's not solely biased in terms of what I want to see. But in actuality, anime should show us what we all see. And that's the truth.